Once Upon a Time, If You Can Believe, a podcast of which one can hardly conceive. 3 sorcerers planned to take over the world, examples they discussed and plans they unfurled. When in an offence, if any are caught, what they've said is for humour, not actually thought. Sit back, relax, take in the narration, and enjoy this here episode of World Domination.
Welcome to World Domination, everyone. I am your host, Jim Lee.
Hello, everyone. I am your host, Kendorf the White.
And I'm your host, Emma Wynn, and I am no man.
Emma Wynn.
Hello, friends.
Hello. Sorry, there's just so many names to remember.
Yeah, look, we'll get there. How was everybody's day? How was your day, Jim?
It was okay. You know, I spent most of the day out of the office. How was your day, Emma?
Yeah, my day was good. It was one of those days where it seems like it drags forever, but it's also ridiculously quick. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, you've just got so much going on, you get so much done, and then you're like, fuck, where's the time gone? But also you feel like you've been there for 4 years. Yeah, it was one of those days, but I got a lot done, so that was good.
Good. And you, Ken?
Oh, so busy today. Just ridiculous. I am dead, but it's okay. I was brought back. That's why I'm Kendorf the White instead of Kendorf the Grey.
Well, I'm sorry to say this, Ken, but the bell doesn't release you. I do.
Oh no.
You can sleep when we're done.
Okay.
So if people haven't guessed it, this week our theme is Lord of the Rings. And I'm very pumped. Jim told me off last week for not sounding excited enough.
Good. I'm glad you're enthused, Emma.
Now I'm pumped.
Get amongst it, as Brother Alf used to say.
This week I was just getting so excited because my first ever proper crush as a young lady was Legolas. Straight up.
Like the character or Orlando Bloom?
Both. Look,
Okay.
I had posters of Legolas above my bed, and even when we were living in Singapore, I had a in my locker at school. Had a poster of Legolas. Oh man, it was just like, and it was back in the time when everybody else had posters of like Emma Watson and like as Hermione. And fun fact that everybody used to go around being like, "Oh, Emma's so hot," and I'd be like, "Oh, thanks, guys." I'm like, "Oh, fuck, not you, gross." I'm like, "Oh, cool."
Oh wow.
Cool. It's just
Cheers, guys. Cheers.
Another day in the life. But yeah, so I'm very excited. When we were living in Singapore was also when like Lord of the Rings was kind of in its prime, like early 2000s. The Lord of the Rings exhibition was there while we were living there, and we went about like 5 times.
Wonderful.
And it was the greatest.
How big was it? Because Singapore is not a huge place.
Look, it wasn't massive, but it was really interesting. We learnt so much there.
Also, what does Singapore have to do with Lord of the Rings? Why
Nothing.
is it there?
They're just, I don't know. Maybe they're...
Just like get on board, get on with the trend.
I don't know. There's lots of expats there. I don't know. Who knows?
Okay.
But it was great.
Okay.
And I learnt so much.
About young love.
Young love.
Nerd.
No, it was interesting because I'm pretty sure we've got a photo somewhere in one of our family albums, but like they talked you through and then you could actually take a photograph as how they filmed the hobbits and like men.
The forced perspective thing.
Yeah, the forced perspective.
Oh yeah, that's very
so we have a photo somewhere of that, and just like sort of going through and like how like all the weather, how they did all of that and how they built things, the amount of stuff that they used, and all the CGI. Because I mean, for back then, I mean, the stuff that they did in the movies was absolutely amazing. Like in a lot of the big battle scenes, they would actually only have about 100 or 200 actors. And then they would just multiply them on using CGI and using the technology like that. And that's how they got the big fight scenes done.
Or more memorably in my household, the Carlton Draft It's Our Big Ad
Oh,
was also made with that same technology.
I love that ad.
Our families are different.
They have the best ads.
It's a big ad.
It's a very average beer, but they have great ads.
Oh, they do. They've got to sell it somehow.
Yeah, no, I can see where you're coming from with Orlando Bloom there, Emma. Like, it's another one of those I'm not blind situations between Lord of the Rings and Pirates of the Caribbean.
I am human.
I am human. I can see where you're coming from there.
Yeah.
Wait, who are you talking about in
no.
Pirates of the Caribbean? Like who
Will
who
Turner,
is
mate.
Will Turner, Orlando Bloom.
Sort your life out, Ken, or you're off the podcast.
Oh crap!
I am looking at a photo of him right now and still digging it.
So we thought we might give a little bit of a primer on the cosmology of the Lord of the Rings, like the how their like divinity system works before we get into the plot of the books/movies themselves.
There's so much.
Just because that they kind of like the cosmology kind of features into our domination plans at the end, and it's an interesting discussion because it's such a fascinating and rich world that Tolkien made over, many thousands of pages.
So many.
So I'll put a link in the show notes to two very good videos that kind of explain everything you need to know after having absorbed the 3 books or the 3 movies. That kind of goes through all of the like backstory and cosmology and stuff. But the short version of the short version is the god of the Lord of the Rings world is called Eru Ilúvatar. He created a bunch of angels which sung in harmony together, except for one guy who was a pain in the ass, who sung out of key and created all the suffering and terror in the world. His second in command, Sauron, eventually goes on to be the bad guy in the Lord of the Rings books, but at that time, he's basically just a low-level angel. There's a big war. The devil, we'll call him Melkor. The devil gets banished. It's not important. You never see him again. Gets banished into the infinite void.
The void.
Sauron doesn't have a boss anymore, so he decides to be self-employed. Comes down to Middle-earth, tricks an elf called Celebrimbor into making these magical rings, because the rings will preserve the level of magic in Middle-earth, because the level of magic degrades over time. He tricks Celebrimbor into making 12 lesser rings, and then Celebrimbor goes and makes 3 rings on his own for the elves.
No, so there's 16 lesser rings, then he goes and makes his own, then plus the one ring. So there's 20 altogether.
Yep. 20 altogether. Yep. Okay. Sauron gets some rings into the hands of some stinky dudes.
Stinky.
That's a technical term of them. Yeah,
Stinky dudes.
I'm sure they were. I mean, it was Middle Earth. I'm sure they were. Or before
the
that.
The elves think everyone else is stinky.
That's because the elves are the better class.
It's racist. But yeah, they are.
100%.
They're magic immortal beings who don't have to worry about death.
Yeah.
I can see why they're above it all. In any case, Sauron gets these 10 rings into some human kings who kind of go over to his side, because Sauron's big power is that he can like control the minds of others, and especially so when people are wearing the rings. And then the elves and the men decide that, they've appeased Hitler enough. It is time to take action, and that if he invades Poland, that they're really going to stop him this time.
You're confusing me, Jim.
And that's where the first book kicks off. So, Emma, what happens in the first book movie?
Man. So Isildur, the last king of Gondor, he defeated Sauron, cut off his finger.
His ring finger.
His old ring finger. Kept the ring, and then he kind of started to turn a bit possessed, I guess. And then he lost the ring.
The ring betrayed him.
Yeah, so basically, what you learn in the beginning is a little bit of the background around there that Jim's kind of explained, and then you obviously know that the ring, which is obviously, it was lost, a couple of ages ago, because now that we're into the third age, I believe. So it's a couple of 100 years, I guess. The
end of the second age and the start of the third age is when Sauron gets defeated.
Yeah. So we're in the third age now. He's lost his ring, and which contains a lot of his power. He wants it back, and because his end goal is that he wants to enslave all of Middle-earth. So a hobbit named Bilbo Baggins stumbles upon the ring, and so I guess hobbits, do we have to explain what they are? They're kind of a lesser...
Hobbits related to men is all of the explanation you get.
It's like, there's something about it. Hold on, I've got it here. Hobbits are a subspecies of men. So there you go. So they're basically short asses, but not quite dwarves. Anyway, so Bilbo stumbles upon the ring so the movie kind of starts off, I guess, around his 111th birthday, where he gives it to his heir, Frodo Baggins.
Ooh.
Gandalf the Grey at the time, he realizes when he's with Frodo what that ring could possibly be, puts it in a fire, the elvish writing around it lights up, and he realizes what it is. He basically says to Frodo, this has to be taken away from the Shire and destroyed. And the only way to do that is take it to Mordor and throw it into the fire pits in Mount Doom. Through this, they go on a little bit of an adventure. There's a couple of other hobbits that join along the way, Merry, Pippin and Sam. Through a couple of exciting adventures, they make their way to Rivendell, where all the elves live. And there's a council that creates a group that's then known as the Fellowship of the Ring. There's an elf, there's Aragorn, which we later find out to be the heir to Gondor. And there's a dwarf, Gimli. Gandalf is there. And then the hobbits, is that it? Is there anybody else? Oh, and
Boromir.
Boromir as well.
And Elrond, but he doesn't go on.
Yeah,
he's not part of the Fellowship.
Fucking, like, I guess he fixes the sword and that's...
That's not nothing.
I mean, yeah. All right. Thanks, Elrond.
He's an angry guy.
MVP. I guess, but so to point out, so Aragorn and Boromir are both men. So Aragorn is the true heir to Gondor, but Boromir, his father, is currently on the throne.
Yeah, Boromir's father, Denethor, is the steward of Gondor.
Yeah, and he's a psycho. Anyway, we'll get to that later.
Steward.
So basically, yeah, so the Fellowship is created, and their ultimate goal is to help Frodo get to Mordor, where the ring needs to be thrown into the fire pit. Yeah, so as they're on their adventure, they go into
Moria.
Oh, the friendship place, the cave of friendships.
Place, the cave of friendship, where all the the dwarves used to live. They go in there and find that's been overrun by goblins, and they're trying to find their way out. They're running through things. Obviously, not obviously, but they've been destroyed. So they have to jump over through these staircases that are kind of half missing and whatever. They jump over this ledge onto this other side, and that is when Balrog appears.
Balrog.
And which is the equal to Sauron. So
On the org chart.
Yeah.
To Gandalf, yeah.
He's equal to Sauron too, isn't he? Because isn't that what's his face?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So he comes out, Gandalf tells them all to just run and like leave him, and they're like, no. And Frodo's like, no, Gandalf, I can't leave you. And he's like, fly, you fools. So basically he falls down the pits with Balrog. They're fighting, and poor Gandalf, let's have a moment for our fallen soldier. So along their travels, they run into Galadriel in the forests of the Galadrim elves. She's basically just this pretty fucking elf, I guess. And she tests their hearts and gives them gifts to help them along their way. So they're kind of making their way along, but during that, she has there's a weird dream kind of sequence with Frodo, and she tells him that he needs to go on the quest on his own because the Fellowship is breaking. So the end of that book/movie is Frodo kind of separating and running away from the rest of the Fellowship, except for Samwise, #MVP of the entire thing.
Yeah.
He follows him, and like even though he can't swim, it was so sad. Even though he can't swim, he like followed him out into the water when he was running off in his boat or sailing off in his boat. And then Frodo pulls him into the boat, saves him, and they head off, and that's kind of where the first one finishes, where they're off on their part. So it kind of like shows or foreshadows that everybody's going off in their own directions and possibly going to do different things.
Back on Galadriel, in the books, so when they all ask for gifts and stuff, do you know what Gimli asks for?
No.
He asks for a strand of Galadriel's hair because he's never seen anyone more beautiful than her.
That's right.
Aww.
And Galadriel's husband is like, you what, mate?
I'll fuck you up.
Yeah, because you know Gimli's going to do some nasty shit with that hair
100%.
later.
Gimli's he's weird.
Hey, he's just slightly awkward like
And
me.
also, he should have gotten Legolas's hair. Come on, mate.
What?
Yeah.
Cut me a lock of
Legolas
that.
is prettier than Galadriel.
100%.
Does anybody have any other thoughts on the first movie or book?
It's good.
It is good.
I enjoy it.
And like, there's a lot of like nonsense that they cut out of the first book, which I can understand why. Like the character known as Tom Bombadil, who is like nature spirit who's older than the earth itself. It's weird. It's best not to think about it too hard.
I heard he's the best character in the whole series.
He's really not.
Oh, okay. The rumors are not true.
He's a hippie.
Oh.
They even say, like, at the Council of Elrond, like, we couldn't get him to do anything, so why would we bother?
He sounds like me.
He's a dirty hippie who lives with his daughter wife in the forest.
Okay, he does not sound like me, everyone.
Jesus. Ken, what have you been up to, man?
Um.
Moving right along.
So on to the Two Towers, the second movie. The second movie, everyone sort of like splits up into a few different parties and goes on to their own adventure.
Even Boromir.
I'm going
he
on
gets
an
split
adventure.
in two.
Oh,
Yes,
oh,
he gets
Boromir.
Boromir, poor guy.
Oh.
But yes, it's okay. His brother comes into this movie. So the movie starts off with Frodo and Samwise going along on their adventure, and well, their adventure to Mordor, and they run into a funny creature, Gollum, who they sort of tame. I don't know how to describe their relationship. It's kind of weird.
They put a leash on him, don't they?
Yeah, they put a leash on him. So yes, tame is probably the correct word. Who is supposed to lead them to Mordor. Sam doesn't trust him, but Frodo feels sympathy for him because they are both suffering the same kind of the taunt from the ring. Yep. Merry and Pippin also gets kidnapped by the orcs, so Gimli, Legolas, and Aragorn tries to track them down. While they're tracking them down, they run back into Gandalf, who is now Gandalf the White. But before that, they ran into the horse people from Rohan.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and their king is currently very troubled because he's being mind controlled by Saruman. Shout out to episode 5 of our first season. Mind control, woo! So basically, they've unable to do much about that, so they go off into a forest and they run into Gandalf the White, and he summons Shadowfax, which I think is like it's a horse, but at the same time, I always found the name Shadowfax really weird. It sounds like some sort of like some courier company. And it's a horse. So I'm like, what
Medieval
Shadowfax?
fax machine.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Anyway. Yes, anyway.
A medieval
You're
fax
a medieval
machine.
fax machine?
Shadowfax is the lord of all horses.
Oh, Lord of all whores. Okay.
Mm.
Nice. Anyway, anyway, with Shadowfax in the party now, Gandalf goes back with the trio, and helps banish Saruman out of King Theoden's mind. And now they have Rohan at their aid.
It's a very good anti-aging for him
Woo!
as well.
Yeah, I was
Yes.
just about to say that.
Oh, that's also where the "you have no power here" thing comes from.
I told you to take the wizard's staff.
You're really good at this, Jim. You've been prepping.
Oh God! All right, cool.
Anyway, so basically the Rohan crew knows that they're very doomed in this war. So they've sent all the women and children to Helm's Deep in order to hide away from this disaster. In the other news, we've also got Merry and Pippin who escaped the kidnapping of the orcs and managed to run to a forest where their Ents.
The stoners.
The stoners live. Yes. I believe it was Treebeard. His name is the leader of the Ents.
I
Who?
love Treebeard.
Yes, he was like, oh yeah, we want no part in this. And then they get out of the forest and they're like, oh shit, he cut up the people. Saruman and his troops cut up all my friends. Okay, change of plans. From here, they go into discussion. They start a little forum, and they decide to go to war.
They hold an Entmu.
Woo.
Do you know what? It's a little fun fact about orcs that I didn't really realize beforehand, but they are actually a byproduct of generations of elves who were corrupted by Melkor. And then they were selectively bred over generations. So that's why they look so fucked up, because they're basically inbred elves.
Oh.
It all makes sense.
Were they bred to look like that?
I don't know.
No, it's mostly like, how when you keep breeding a Habsburg over and over again, you end up getting ones who can't say anything without a lisp.
What's a
It's a bit like that,
Well,
but
basically
imagine
the hills have eyes.
Habsburgs were like medieval kings and queens of.
Oh,
the Holy
I
Roman
remember.
Empire.
Yeah, there were people who had like jaw disfigurements to the
Yeah.
point where they can't eat.
So much so that Spain still has a lisp because one of their kings spoke with a lisp because he was so inbred.
Oh, man.
That's why they say Barcelona.
Barcelona.
Don't sleep with your relatives, friends.
Don't be a cuz-nuzzler.
Oh, on the other side of things, Frodo and Samwise and Gollum. they have a run-in with one of the Nazguls, one of the ring wraiths, and have some trouble there. Apart from that, they also get captured by Faramir and his
Who is
crew.
the brother of Boromir?
Brother of Boromir. I really like Faramir. He's like one of my favorite characters.
What? He's fucked
What?
up.
What? Faramir?
Faramir?
Yeah.
Faramir's great.
He tries
Yeah,
to bloody
Faramir.
kill Frodo.
Does he?
Yes.
Does he?
He fucking kidnaps him. You literally just said that.
Yeah, but like,
He tries to kill him because he wants the ring. As soon as he finds out that Frodo has the ring, he tries to kill him.
But he didn't.
But he tried to. That doesn't make him a good guy.
He's a great guy. How dare you?
No. Look, I'm sure he had his moments.
Anyway, he gets taken back to their kingdom, and was it still in this movie when he releases Frodo and Sam back so that they can succeed?
Yeah. Yeah, he does.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was
So look,
this
he has
movie.
one redeeming quality at the end, all right?
Yeah.
Yep.
He does better than his brother.
Oh,
Woo!
it's probably on par, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, he tried to kill Frodo, and then he realised that he was doing wrong, and then protected him so he could get away, which is pretty much like the exact same
Yeah,
thing that
no, you're
Faramir
right.
did.
Oh, this is also the movie where the Battle of Helm's Deep happens, and the elves also come and help the Rohan people.
Fun fact, Peter Jackson's daughter is in some of those shots.
What?
In which
In
shots?
the Battle of Helm's Deep, she's shown cuddling up to, I don't think it's his wife, I think it's somebody else, but it's his daughter, and like, where all the women and children are hiding in the underneath in the
Yeah.
she's one of the children that gets shown.
And I believe that is the Two Towers. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
So what did you guys think of the movie?
Exciting.
Exciting.
Except like, I feel like so that everyone's got split up, and I'm a big fan of like, keep the party together. So,
Yeah, don't split the party.
yeah.
It's surprising not more characters died.
Yep. Yeah, I know that when they were making the movies of it, they wanted to kill off one of the hobbits because they were like, they shouldn't all survive. Like, what are the chances of them all surviving? And it's just like, nah, just go with it.
You gotta stick with it. You can't.
It is what it is. Like, but I know I enjoy it. I think, to be honest, I very much enjoy all three films, but I think Two Towers is probably my least favorite, not by much out of them.
Yeah,
but
it kind of has the curse of being the middle child.
a damn middle child. Like, it's got some good moments and stuff like that, but I think
Faramir's in it.
we know how I feel about Faramir.
True. Okay.
And Gollum.
And Gollum.
And Gollum.
Good old Gollum. Yeah, I think
Although he is technically in the first one.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
technically. His hands in the first one.
he's stalking
And
them.
his voice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that too.
No. When they he's the one that they capture and torture to
Oh,
find
right,
out
yeah,
where
yeah,
the
yeah.
ring had gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
He's the one that does the Shalla Baggins.
Jesus Christ. How long have you been practicing that?
All my
His
life.
whole life.
I was born for this one moment.
The third story, The Return of the King, starts with a flashback.
A flashback.
So it starts with a flashback to Gollum before he turned into Gollum, when he was a hobbit that went by the name of Smeagol. And he and his brother were fishing in the river that just so happened to be the same river where Isildur was assassinated and dropped the ring into the bottom of the river.
Oh, would you look at that?
And this is where there's a scuffle. They fall into the river. One of them ends up grabbing the ring off the bottom of the ocean. Off the riverbed. And then when they get back to the shore, it tempts them. It speaks to their minds. They get into a fight, and Smeagol kills Deagle, takes the ring.
Sorry,
His
I
name was
love it.
Deagle.
I love it.
Oh, it was.
Smeagol and Deagle. It's just like bloody Boromir and Faramir. Like, be a little bit more creative.
No, it's great. It shows that the characters are related really easily.
What? And so, if our names rhyme, we can't bang each other? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Ah.
I dig it.
Yes, before last names, that's how you did it.
Okay.
Then there's the classy one, Regal.
Oh my God.
So, for his crime, Gollum runs off into the Misty Mountains to be alone with his precious. And he spends a couple 100 years getting to know it quite well.
That sounds so creepy. Yep.
Yeah.
He was ugly before he got the ring.
Whoa.
Whoa, that's Andy
You
Serkis,
leave
man.
Andy
You-
alone.
You speak with respect there.
Zaz.
But yeah, no, Andy Serkis is not the most conventionally attractive man. I'll give you that. He's kind of a nugget of a man.
Look, if Steve Buscemi can make it,
Yeah.
Andy Serkis is all right.
Anyway, so that's just to show you where how the ring came into Gollum's possession. The plot kicks off with two parts of the group reuniting. So Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli meet up with Merry and Pippin in Isengard after they convince the Ents to torch the place. And so those two parts of the group meet up again, and they end up trying to convince Theoden to ride to Gondor because they assume that Gondor is about to be attacked by Sauron. Frodo and Sam and Gollum keep traveling towards Mordor. Gollum knows of a back entrance. He knows the secret back door where the bouncer will let him into Mordor.
Knows the password.
Yeah, he knows where to slip a guy a sneaky 20. Or at least he says he does. So they keep making their way towards the secret back door. Aragorn decides to take a little vacay from the march towards Gondor with the rest of the Rohirrim, and he goes into a mountain called Dunharrow? No, it's the Men of Dunharrow, who are traitors who didn't go to Isildur's aid when he called for them to battle against Sauron at the end of the Second Age, and they are now ghostly spectral figures who are cursed to wander the earth until their debt is repaid.
Ooh.
Poor guys.
So Elrond hands Aragorn a cool sword and says, I don't know, I thought you might need this. Seemed important, I guess.
It's dangerous out there. Take this with you.
He reforged it. It was the sword that Isildur used to cut off Sauron's finger.
Choppy, chop, chop.
Yes. And so Aragorn goes to claim the debt of the ghosts. We find out that there's a giant army marching on Gondor, their capital city, Minas Tirith. All the characters kind of converge at Minas Tirith, where Gandalf is kind of coordinating the defenses from within the city. Theoden and the Rohirrim are kind of attacking from the side. And then Aragorn comes and brings the ghosts to fight from the other side, and they all kind of clear out all the orcs in the middle, just in time for tea.
Yay, tea!
Yay! During this time, Gollum is leading Frodo and Sam through Shelob's Passage, which sounds like a euphemism for something, but let's not go there.
Shelob's Passage.
Shelob's the worst.
Shelob's great.
No, Shelob's the worst. I hate spiders. It's always fucking spiders.
Yeah, because they're terrifying.
Yeah, so stop it.
So Shelob is a giant immortal spider that lives just on the fringes of Mordor and picks off orcs that come her way. And Gollum knows that if he takes Sam and Frodo through here, that Shelob is likely to eat them, and then he can get his precious back. But it doesn't pan out as he hopes. Frodo gets wrapped up, but not eaten. Sam has to chase after Frodo after he gets picked up by some orcs who assume that he's just some wandering lost child, and they take him back to cook him or something. Sam has taken the ring at this point and is now the last ring bearer. They end up in Mordor. Sam catches up to Frodo, frees him. They go to Mount Doom. Gollum catches up to him, but Frodo's able to drop the ring into the fires of Mount Doom. It's destroyed.
Yay.
There's a bullshit little battle at the gates of Mordor to distract Sauron, but
Distracts the eye.
Yes.
Yes.
I see you. And then Gandalf calls in an Uber, and then some eagles pick up Frodo and Sam.
5-star rating.
Woo!
Yay.
Yeah.
5-star.
Oh man. Yeah. Look, it's a good movie. It is a good movie. I think that it's so long, but it's one of those ones that you don't actually realize how long it is while you're watching it because there's just something happening.
Like
all
this
the time.
podcast.
Yeah, like this podcast. But there's just so much happening.
Oh yeah, there's so much happening.
And there's so much book. Oh my god. We haven't even got to the epilogue yet, but who cares?
Wait, there's an epilogue?
There's an epilogue where they go back to the Shire.
Oh, that's
And
right, yeah.
nobody
that's
gives a shit.
Because they're hobbits.
Yeah.
They drink, they smoke, they eat.
Who likes a few fun facts? Do you guys like some fun facts?
Go for it.
I love fun facts.
Who doesn't, Ken? Did you know that Sean Connery read for Gandalf? But
Hell yeah.
he turned it down
Fuck
because
yeah.
he did not understand it.
What?
He didn't understand the script. He'd never read. He tried to read the books and didn't get it. Even apparently after he's watched the movies and people have asked him since, and he still doesn't get it. And he was like, "Look, I would have agreed to something I don't understand if it was for a small amount of time, but apparently obviously they were shooting all 3 films
Back to back.
back to back, and he was like, nah, can't do it."
Yeah.
That's very respectable, though. Like, yeah, I respect that.
I get it. Another fun one. So around Aragon, he was a really hard character to cast, I guess. So Nicolas Cage was offered the role.
Why is it
It's
always Nicolas
Nicolas
Cage?
Turned down Shrek. So he turned it down this time, not because he didn't want to be an ogre, but because it was due to family obligations.
Was this around the time of his divorce?
Probably. He's had about 7, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So then the role went to, I think also that Vin Diesel also auditioned for him, but they were like, he's not quite he's too fast and too furious.
He is.
So after Nicolas Cage turned it down, it went to Stuart Townsend, who I think he ended up having a little bit of a role in the movie. But anyway, he trained for 2 months. He was on set, everything. The day before filming started, he was fired because they wanted some.
Who's Stuart Townsend?
They say he was up and coming, but he's not really. I think at one point he was dating for a couple of years Charlize Theron a few years ago, but to be honest, I can't even name anything he's in. I just know his face.
Stuart Peter Townsend is an Irish actor. His most notable portrayals are of the characters Lestat the Lion Court in the 2002 film adaptation of Anne Rice's Queen of the Damned. Okay, I have no idea. I'm sorry.
So he was fired the day before filming started.
Oh, he's Peter Townsend's son. Okay.
Yeah, because they wanted an older looking actor.
Okay.
So then they went with Vigo, and their backup, if Vigo said no, was good old Russell Crowe.
Fuck yes.
Can you imagine?
Woo! Oh, yeah. I can
but
see that.
Vigo, he wasn't too keen on it. But
I am entertained.
but Vigo's son apparently was a massive fan of the books, and he was like, "You've got to do it, Dad." He talked him into it, which is cool.
Okay.
Couple other fun ones. Jake Gyllenhaal auditioned for Frodo. Apparently, it was one of the worst auditions that Peter Jackson's ever seen. Liam Neeson passed on the role of Boromir.
Oh, that's sad. He would have been fun in that.
Yeah, I could see that. Another fun fact for #women is that a lot of the riders of Rohan were actually women wearing beards, because most of the best riders in New Zealand, where it was all shot, were women. Yeah.
Yay!
Yay, women! Yay, New Zealand!
I know Vigo seemed to really enjoy filming those movies. Like, he bought the horse that he rode. Yeah. He broke a tooth partway through filming and was like, "Nah, just glue it in. We'll get back to it."
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, was it during part of when they were filming Two Towers, he broke a couple of toes as well.
Yeah. I was like, I'll be fine.
Good on him. What a guy.
He's hardcore.
They asked him to be in the Hobbit movies, and he was like, "But my character's not in that."
What would they want him to do in The Hobbit?
The same thing they wanted Legolas to do, just kind of show up for name recognition, because Legolas isn't in the Hobbit book.
I feel like it makes sense for Legolas to kind of be around, because he's a bloody immortal elf.
Yeah, and they do go to an elf kingdom. I don't know if that's like Legolas's elf kingdom. It might be the same one, but...
No, I think no, it is. But yeah, so there's some fun facts. And it was filmed over 274 days in all, using 350 purpose-built sets in more than 150 locations throughout New Zealand. That's insane. That's intense. That's a lot.
Damn. 274 days.
It's a record, apparently.
Imagine how much cocaine Peter Jackson had to buy for the pitch meeting where he pitched
this
giant project to New Line Cinema.
But I guess it makes sense, because if they're building all these sets, you get 3 movies. So as the studio, you'd be like, yeah, okay, it makes sense.
You get 3 movies for the price of 2, basically.
Yeah.
Any more facts?
Other than New Zealand is the greatest country ever.
Shadow facts.
Oh man.
Shadow facts. I like that.
Any more shadow facts? Other than that, New Zealand is absolutely fantastic, and that a lot of the places you can still go and see. Because I still want to go back and for our listeners who don't know, I am actually Kiwi by blood, and I'm very proud of it. And I honestly wanted to do a Kiwi accent this whole episode, but I forgot.
It would have been weird.
What if I did a Kiwi accent for the whole thing?
Yeah.
Look, to throw people off, just not even mention it either.
So weird to edit.
Just what the fuck's happening? But no, so last time, not last time I was in New Zealand, but one of the last times I was in New Zealand, I had a father-daughter day and went to Hobbiton with my dad, and it was the greatest day of my life. I won the trivia on the tour that we were on. It was just a bunch of people who had no idea what was going on, or didn't know it that much, or got things wrong, and I was like, mate, what are we even doing? But one of the awesome things is that how they actually found the location for the Shire. So obviously Peter Jackson, fellow Kiwi, he knew that he wanted to film in New Zealand. They had all these great locations. So they're actually in a helicopter flying around. They ended up in the Waikato district for it, in a place called Matamata. But so they were flying around looking at all these farmlands and everything, and they saw this tree, and it apparently looked exactly like what they had pictured from Tolkien's books. And it's the tree that Frodo's sitting under at the front of the Shire when Gandalf comes in. Yeah. So they saw that from the helicopter. Okay. They went down, they found a safe place for that, and they went down, they found the family that owned the land, and were like, we need to film here. And so that's how they found it was the tree that set it off. And they built the set and all Hobbiton and everything, and all the little holes and whatever, and they knocked it down after the first 3 movies. But there was a lot of tourists that would still come wanting to see where it was all filmed and everything. So when they rebuilt it for The Hobbit, though the trilogy of The Hobbit, they decided to actually keep it there. So since 2004, an average of 47,000 international visitors each year have visited a film location. That's a lot.
I remember I went to where they filmed Hobbiton, and like this was before they rebuilt it for The Hobbit, and there was just nothing there. There was just nothing there. But they went there, and the guide was like, see that streamer and that tree over there? That was there when they filmed it. I was like, cool.
Whereas when I went, they had the bloody Green Dragon Inn. Yeah, so the Green Dragon Inn is actually, they've built it there as well, and it's a fully functioning pub. So it's very different to when we actually got beer and stuff in there. That's pretty cool. Yeah. No, it's amazing. But they can actually have weddings and stuff there too. They've got like a full-on setup back there. So kind of keen for that to happen.
I could look tall in my wedding photos.
You could.
Ooh.
But straight up, I would 100% have my wedding there if I could. And I can. I just need a partner.
Under that streamer.
I just need a partner first. But yeah.
Yeah, that's the important bit.
Is it though? I'll just do a bloody Sue Sylvester from Glee and marry myself.
Do we get to be like your MCs and be like, the World Domination podcast host MCs?
I'll think about it.
Villain appreciation moment. Chilling with the villain.
What do you guys think of Sauron as a villain?
Look, I think my plan kind of shows what I think of him, but I think, look, I like him.
But we don't know that yet.
No, but I'm just saying that, like, so I'm going to go down that path. Oh my God, Jim.
She's foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing basically that how I think he could have done better, essentially.
Yeah.
But I think overall, I think he did a pretty good job, considering he was still the most powerful after 2 ages.
Yeah, I think he did about as good as he could being non-corporeal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Look, out of 10, I like him. I'm going to give him a 9.
Oh, a 9, really? I mean, I think we were talking about this off air, and I don't know if this is part of your plan, but I think I agree with something you said off air in that he kind of like, even though he's like built up to this over like 1,000 years, he kind of blows his load too quickly.
Yeah. It's probably like he's just bored and he's like, fuck, I need something to happen quick. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, he's kind of the classic villain, fantasy villain trope of like, the all-seeing eye who can, sees you when you're sleeping and knows when you're awake. And
is he Santa?
Yes.
That's why I think I like him. Not because he's Santa, but because he's like the traditional kind of, I like that.
Yeah. And like, he could have picked better friends.
You don't make friends with salad.
Make friends with lava. And, he shouldn't have put all of his eggs in one ring. But, his plan for, like, taking over the elves with the rings to start with, that's a pretty good plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that, like it says in that video that I put in the show notes, their side defense was better than his side attack.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, his plan for, like, taking over the world the second time, also not bad. It just so happened that, everyone was kind of on their ball that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's a really good villain because like everything that sort of happened to stop him from really taking over everything was like everything just went really well for everyone, and then this race of hobbits who are not very ambitious suddenly turns up, like the people you don't even think about who are very, very unlikely to have played a part in destroying your plan comes in.
Like if it was any other race, they would have like immediately fallen to madness with the ring just being on the desk near them.
And I think that's also like one of the charms of the movies, like and the story is that the unlikely sort of happens, and that's what make it so fantastical. But at the same time, like if you look at it from a villain's point of view, he's really everything sort of just. It could have gone really well. Like if the elves kept the rings on, like if they really wanted to keep the magic going in their kingdoms and kept the rings on, they would have fallen for his plan. But if they don't keep them on, then they lose their magic eventually, and the elves would weaken to the point where he would be able to take over.
Yeah.
So I feel like he's at least an 8.5 of a villain for me.
Do you know, like it's interesting, like when you're mentioning about the elves and everything like that, because I know that they were quite torn about destroying the ring because they're also connected, and obviously the reason that Rivendell and things like that are so pretty and so beautiful and everything is because of the power that's come from those rings, and because of the connection between them. Once the one ring is destroyed, the others kind of lose their power.
Yeah.
And I think they say it's the end of the age of magic and the beginning of the age of man.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it's interesting.
And who wants that? I want magic.
Yeah, I'm like the hobbits. I just want food.
But you still want wizard fireworks, and that's magic.
So, Jim, what do you rate him?
Yeah, I'm giving him an 8.
Yeah, okay, cool.
He's also very classy, He doesn't do anything that makes him like lesser, what I mean? He's not like petty or anything like that.
Yeah, he's not very untoward.
Okay.
I mean, he does kill a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So why don't we move on to our own plans? So Emma, why don't you go first today?
Oh. Well,
Woo!
Step right up. In short, my belief is that Sauron tried too hard to be or beat Gothmog. I think we kind of talked about him before, but I guess a little bit of a recap that he was the Lord of the Balrogs during the First Age, and his only equal in rank is Sauron, both created by Melkor, aka Morgoth, when he rebelled. I guess brothers. It's a bit of a brotherly fight there, I guess. So Gothmog was better in battles, whereas Sauron was better working evil behind the scenes. So Gothmog would kind of lead the armies and things like that. So when Sauron played the long subversion game, it was the main reason that he stayed so powerful all the way into the Third Age. There was a thing where he used a plague and stirring up proxy factions and infighting to cause the kingdom of Arnor to fade away over a few generations, which basically shows you that when he sticks to the background and takes his time, he's obviously a lot more successful. And as you mentioned before, Jim, like he kind of just went I'm bored and just did things too quickly. So in the Third Age, when all of this is mostly it's all set, pretty much, he tried to bring various factions against all of the kingdoms that still stood against him. And I think he overplayed his hand, or blew his load, as Jim would kindly put it.
I would.
Which brew out the Ishtari, which is the wizards, so Gandalf, Saruman, the two blue ones, and Radagast, the bloody woods one. So he drew out those guys, which kind of led to his downfall, I guess, because Gandalf was able to set things in motion, and then he talked to Elrond, who helped draw out Aragorn. He reforged the sword, etc., which helped all of that. And so Aragorn eventually, as we know, took the throne of Gondor and united the kingdom. So if they basically weren't aware of things sooner, like they wouldn't have been able to get all of the kingdoms together. Aragorn wouldn't have known, he wouldn't have been able to get where he needed to go in time. So basically my plan is that Sauron should have played the long game a lot more, and he should have taken them one by one like he did with the Kingdom of Arnor, and over generations take over. And I think if he had taken over a few more kingdoms, he might have succeeded at like taking the last couple in one, but he didn't. And I guess that's the plan loosely, is that I think he blew his load too quick, and he should have played the long game a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Any questions?
Do you have any specific steps that you want to take? Is there anything specifically that you'd like to do slower?
No, I think he was, to be honest, he probably shouldn't have built as many armies as big and as quick as he did with all the orcs and things like that. I think he got Saruman on side and off side of the others, which was good. I think helped him, but I think Saruman also gave things away to Gandalf. So I think he should have, I think he did the right things, but he should have done things a bit slower and taken one kingdom by one kingdom. Like as we were talking about before, like, Rohan and things like that. Like if they hadn't have gone to Rohan, they wouldn't have known all the shit that was going down there and that he had been taken over essentially. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it should have done it slower. And I think, if he had just kind of not the wizards basically, as soon as they found out he was gone. Yeah.
Cool. I like it.
Cool.
Me too.
Kenneth, you're up.
Okay.
Step up to the plate.
Step up to the plate.
You better swing.
Swing. Bada, swing.
Ready. Okay, step 1, start a love potion factory.
No.
Okay,
This is the bloody, fucking, what is it, Kingsman all over again. No love potion factories.
Fine. After he gets taken down and loses his body, his corporeal form, he projects his eye into onto that tower and uses it as basically a glorified lighthouse / watchtower. I believe that, with his power and intellect, he can, in fact, project his whole body and go around stomping around and Godzilla his way around all of Mordor and stop shit from happening, instead of letting the hobbits getting to Mount Doom and throwing the ring in. So...
But do we ever actually see him use light constructs to, bash things in his non-corporeal form?
But he's like a ball...
Do we know it?
I don't think so. I don't think he does. I think it's more of like a brain effect. Like if he's looking at you and you're like, oh my god. But I feel like there must be a reason that he can't do that. Because otherwise, why wouldn't he naturally just be like, I'm going to be fucking Godzilla and do it?
Because he's basically a ghost.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of like Voldemort.
Okay.
The ring is kind of like his Horcrux, and his body was killed, but not his soul at the battle at the end of the Second Age.
Yeah.
So he's kind of disembodied.
Interesting.
Kind of, I don't know, it's kind of similar.
Yeah.
Why don't you just torment Gandalf and stop him from sleeping with your mind powers?
Oh, I can do that too. Yes. Oh, what was that orb that was in the?
Oh, the Palantir.
Yeah, that thing. Just make a bunch of those and roll them around.
Just make a bunch of Palantirs. It's like the new service from Facebook, Palantir. Commune with the Dark Lord Sauron. I mean, connect with your friends.
Yay! I thought of a new thing is to, instead of make rings, make Chinese finger traps that stay on.
That you can't
that
take
you
off.
can't take off.
Excellent.
China doesn't exist.
Oh, sorry.
Middle Earth finger trap.
Middle Earth finger trap.
Well, there's men from the Easts. Where do you think the Oliphants came from?
But they're not Chinese, Jim.
Middle Earth is supposed to be like England.
That explains the accents.
Yeah, it's meant to be like a mythology for England, who doesn't really have its own mythology like the Romans and the Vikings do. And so it's meant to be roughly geographically accurate to England. So who's to say China doesn't exist?
I ran out of ideas, so I tried to consult Daniel on this. So Daniel says, I would go with the political campaign for equal rights for orcs and goblins.
Wait, sorry, what was that? Go again.
I like that a lot.
Political campaign for equal rights for orcs and goblins. So therefore, Sauron the Great and kind wizard sacrificed himself to create the One Ring, but realizing the error in his ways with the last alliance of men, elves, and dwarves, but only creating one ring, he decides to make many rings to share his wealth and knowledge. Only for them to fall into a secret trap of all the rings being linked to him and therefore being able to corrupt them all because they are weak-minded. And then he said, remember political campaign of Sauron being great liberator of people's minds?
Oh, glory to the Hypno-Eye! Okay, so my plan is fairly simple. So Sauron only made one of the rings, his ring, the One Ring. The rest of the rings were made by Celebrimbor, including the 3 elven rings, one of which, funnily enough, Gandalf has.
Gandalf.
It's what helps him to inspire awe and confidence in people, and basically is what kept him on the task of destroying Sauron, which is basically the reason he's on Middle-earth to begin with. What happens is, Celebrimbor makes the rings that end up in the hands of, the kings and the elves and the dwarves and whatever. But then he finds out about Sauron's evil plan, and Sauron kills him. Why?
Why?
My plan is for Sauron to keep Celebrimbor alive. Just churning out lesser rings that I can keep giving to more and more smelly dudes. And then I end up with, instead of having, how many ring rates are there? 10?
9. Because it's 9
9.
rings for the men.
Oh, yeah. Instead of having 9 ring rates, I can have an army of semi-immortal ghost killers.
Ooh.
Woo!
Ghost killers.
Who can only be killed by women, of which there appear to be 2 in all of Middle-earth.
You'll find more. There was lots of female children though, so
There's lots of female hobbits poking
just
around.
you wait. Give it a couple of generations. We'll find some. I guess my question there is, right, so the ring bearer, I'm not even going to try and say his name.
Celebrimbor.
So he created 3 rings basically without Sauron knowing for the elves. What's to stop him from changing things or killing himself or not making you any more rings?
In the words of Shrek, good question.
I think that's my only thing. He's an elf, so he's officially immortal, I guess, but
Yes.
he'd find a way.
I mean, elves can't die naturally, but they can die from good old stabbery. And I feel like if I'm leaving him in a workshop with ring-making tools, there's enough there's enough in there for him to kill himself with. Especially seeing as they have to... Oh, no, only the one ring was made in Mount Doom. The rest of them I don't think were made in there.
But
there's a forge and a furnace and whatnot.
Consider, do you know what I mean? I think that's my only thing is that your plan is basically relying on this one guy.
Yeah.
He's just going to be fuck no. He's going to either change the way he's made the rings so they're not going to have the same impact that they should, or he go and kill himself.
But you're forgetting a couple of things. One, he is semi-immortal and can't be killed by age. So, as long as I keep feeding him, he will still be alive, which means I can torture him for a very long time.
Yeah, but then he'd just be like, hey, friend over there, this is what's happening right now. Can you please kill me?
Yeah. And my secret special skill is the ability to dominate the minds of others.
Yeah, look.
And, over thousands of years, I reckon I've got a good shot.
Yeah, but if he's... Yeah, true. But it depends on how long he's... I think it kind of just depends on Celebrimbor and how much he can...
willing he is to
and how much he
kicking.
can withstand. Because if he's already... he's made, 16 rings...
Yeah.
And then he's like, fuck you, I'm going to make 3 for the elves. He's probably not going to stand around and deal with you for much longer. But it is a good plan. I get it.
Okay.
Also, you can make rings yourself, so this plan can still work.
That is true. I can make my own. I don't know why...
Yeah, actually, that's true. Just make them yourself.
If worst comes to worst, I can just make my own. Yeah.
Although, can he only make them in Mount Doom?
I don't know if he can only make them in Mount Doom, but the one ring could certainly only be made in Mount Doom.
My question would be, why didn't he just make more rings himself? Is it because he himself is too powerful that he had to get somebody else to make them for him? Because his power was put into the one ring, would it not then make sense that any other rings he made would use his power also?
I don't know for certain if there is a reason within the story for that. I know outside of the story, it doesn't make sense to have 1 billion rings around because it all gets too complicated.
And then you got too many powerful people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the meta reason why.
Yeah. I could get that, but it's just I'm curious as to because as Ken said, he could have you can just make the rings yourself.
Make my own.
Maybe he's just not as smart as Jim.
He's just,
I mean,
he only made one, and he's like, that'll do.
Yeah,
one and done.
I was about to say one and done too.
You need 6 of them, and they all need to look like random stones, and they need to go into a river.
Oh my god, Jim.
So now we come to the weakest link.
Oh, you are the weakest link, Kenjamin.
Oh! Wait, we don't... No, we're not voting the weakest link. I know I'm the weakest link. Anyway,
I'm sorry.
I would like to go.
Sorry,
I would
Ken.
like to go with the Chinese finger trap one.
Oh, in that case,
Your plan's not bad, Ken. I'll give you that.
Thank you.
The only problem with your plan is that for most men who come across these rings, they will never take them off anyway because it so corrupts their minds.
Oh, but
So
what if the elves don't take
It's
them
a
off?
virtual Chinese finger trap.
Interesting.
But yeah, I agree with the elves. That's a good plan. It's just, yeah.
Yes.
I guess that means I'm voting for Emma.
Whoa!
That means Emma's voting for me.
Hey! Oh, okay.
So it really comes down to you, Ken.
Oh,
You're the kingmaker.
wow, being the weakest link isn't so bad.
You are the steward of this podcast.
I hold the ring of power.
One ring, one vote to rule them all.
I vote for Jim's plan.
Yes!
No!
Yes!
No!
Suck it, Emma.
No, I worked on mine so much. I wanted to win this one out of all of them. No.
Well, you know you're going to win the next one because I'm not going to have any idea. Well done, Emma.
I lost.
I know, but you played well. I'm being a good sport.
I enjoy the idea of mass-producing rings and ring wraiths.
Yay.
Yay! I think the voice acting also really sold it.
Thank you.
Cheatsy
Thank you.
doodles.
Say, if
Cheatsy
you
doodles.
held up a Kiwi accent for the whole podcast, you probably would have won.
Can I throw it in now?
Yes.
Yeah, sure, go for
Okay,
it.
let's re-record it.
If we re-record the entire podcast, and I'll just keep my Kiwi accent for the rest of it.
Is this natural or put on?
What do you mean?
Do you have to think about putting the accent on, or does it just come naturally?
No, it comes naturally. If I just have a conversation, I can easily keep it going.
Like slip in and out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, that was fun, guys. So now we come to the end of the show. So just before the end of today's scheduled broadcast, we just wanted to remind people of something. So our poll for what we're going to do our final episode on will be going up on Twitter now, as this episode is released. Because of how we record these, I'm speaking to you from the past right now, so I don't know for certain what options are going to be in that poll, but go vote so you can tell us what you'd like us to do our final episode on.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do the right.
Do it.
Do the raw.
Do the vote.
Either or. But until then, thanks for listening, everyone.
I just need to add that Orlando Bloom's 42 and still got it. And he can get it.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for listening.
Oh, no.
What are we talking about next time, guys?
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
Bam, 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 bam.
Which I have not seen.
That should be fun.
This is gonna
It's
be
my
fun.
time. I have my chance.
You know what? I'm willing to watch between 3 and 5 episodes. So if our listeners want to let me know which 3 or 5 episodes I should watch out of all of it to catch me up to speed.
Just watch the first episode and the last episode.
That's what I was thinking today. But you guys tell me, our listeners, which 3 to 5 episodes should I watch so I can provide an opinion on the show.
If you watch the first and last episode, it would make 0 sense.
Do it.
That's what I'm hoping.
I feel like if you watch the first, there's just so much that happens. You can't even watch the first episode and the last episode of every season.
Yeah. To be fair, I have seen the entire first season and I think half of the second season.
Right, okay.
All right. Well done. I'll see you next week.
Thanks for
for
playing.
listening,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to World Domination. You can find links to all the things we talked about, our other episodes, or leave us a voice message at anchor.fm/worlddomination. If you'd prefer to talk to us non-verbally, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at WorldDomPodcast, or you can email worlddompod@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to tell your mum about it. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all together. And in the darkness.
You added that word in.
Added that word in.
Ah,
God damn it, Jim.
God damn it.